is the Pegasus Podcast, presented by Night Sports Now. UCF news, views, and a few hot takes. Now, here are your hosts, Bailey Go Knights Adams and Christian Charge On Simmons.
Welcome into episode 289. Be sure you're following us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at @ByCASimmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. You can also email us at PegasusPodcast@ksn@gmail.com. You have to start with today's episode with some heartbreaking news, really. UCF announced on Monday morning that offensive line coach Sean Clark has passed away. Obviously, we talked last week about him suffering a medical emergency and unfortunately passed away at the age of 50 on Monday or late Sunday night. We have the statements from Coach Frost and Terry Mohajir. Coach Frost saying, Sean was so much more than a coach. He was a remarkable man, husband, and father who cared deeply about his players and staff. The reaction of our players and coaches to the news this morning is a testament to Sean's character and the impact he had on every life that he touched. He was loved. Our thoughts and prayers are with his wife, Jonelle, and children, Gianna and Braxton. We are here to support them and will continue to keep them in our hearts and prayers. And then Terry Mohajir saying, we are heartbroken by Sean's passing. He brought passion, integrity, and a genuine love for people to everything he did. Sean will be remembered not only for his impact on the game of football, but also for the relationships he built and the example he set as a husband and father. Our deepest condolences go out to his wife and children during this difficult time. Obviously, same for us. Our condolences, our thoughts, our hearts, our prayers, everything out to Sean Clark's family, anyone he touched. Obviously, the UCF program, it's a tough thing that everybody's going through right now. App State community obviously was shaken by this as well, where he was previously. I think just the football community as a whole. You were seeing, things come out all day on Monday from various coaches and college football reporters, personalities, people who've gotten to talk to and interview Coach Clark, and you could just get a sense of the kind of guy he was. And in the short time we got to see him at UCF, you got that sense as well. So it's heartbreaking news to deal with. Yeah,
it's always just obviously so beyond horrible when anything like this happens, and seeing everything on Twitter, because obviously he was at UCF just for this last year, and already there were so many stories of things, people talking about him and what a great guy he was, and it was just so sad, and I guess also touching, just seeing all the stories across college football from his former players, people who had worked with him. It is such an awful situation, man. Our condolences to his family. Just a terrible, terrible thing.
It's tough. We'll try to get on with the rest of our podcast previewing Kansas State later on. We're going to get into some wrap-up stuff from the UNC, and I think just everyone throughout this week and throughout the rest of the season will be thinking of Coach Clark and his family, because it's not just something that is easy to deal with. Like it kind of shakes you to your core. So it's just real tough. But looking back now and switching gears, last Saturday, obviously UCF winning 34-9, beating North Carolina. We had our post-game podcast, and you and I were battling through some things. Like I couldn't talk. My voice really still isn't recovered from Saturday. I guess I screamed more than I thought I did. How's your head? You go to the no headaches?
Got a little sick after. Oh. So thinking the headache may have been a sign of things to come. I don't really know what happened. I just I don't know. Headache sucked, but we got through it. We did the pod. You and I talked right because I left to go back to Tampa right after that, and you and I were talking, and it was like, I love how we were like, let's probably try to keep this one short because we both weren't, up to it. And we went, I think, our longest post-game podcast there was a lot to talk about. And I said to you right before we got on, because my head was killing me. And I was like, let's just keep this to 20 minutes, like in and out. Let's get this done. And then I yapped about uniforms like 40 minutes into that thing. So that's about
so right. We're at the 38-minute mark, and I'm just
podcast vibes. Oh, really quickly, if you're watching on YouTube, you can probably tell by the lovely photo of fruit behind me. I am not in my usual location. My parents are in Europe. Congratulations to them, which means I am watching their dogs. So if you see me mute unexpectedly, it's because these two lovely dogs, whom I love very much, have a little bit of Chihuahua on each of them. They're mixes. And part of that is that if there is any slight noise outside, they lose their absolute minds. So that will be why you see me muting occasionally here on this podcast.
It'll feel like for longtime listeners of the Pegasus Podcast, they'll remember, I think not when we first started. When we first started this podcast, I was living in Orlando. Yep. But there was a time during this podcast when I lived at my parents' house, and our dog is also not Chihuahua at all, but would I almost said scream, would bark at everything outside and just go crazy. So a little bit of a throwback for us here today's podcast. Also should mention too, before we get into some of the things we missed from UCF UNC, we do our Kansas State preview. It'll be a little different today. We're going to have a special guest. It's actually my boss, Scott Reynolds from pewterreport.com. He is a Kansas State grad and Kansas State fan. And he's been real weird this week about this matchup because he's so down about Kansas State that he's trying to reverse jinx everything. He wore a UCF shirt on a podcast earlier today. I'm thinking we're going to get some hijinks from him when he joins later on. But
funniest thing you could have done was show up to this podcast in a K-State shirt.
I didn't have one, but would have liked to.
Thank you for clarifying. I assumed you just kept a stock of all Big 12. Hey, we almost. I came very close to buying a shirt with a Kansas State logo on it when you were in town for the game at Dick's Sporting Goods. There was a Big 12 shirt that I really liked, but I didn't buy it because I couldn't get around wearing a Cincinnati logo. So that was what stopped me.
It's funny because I did tell you, I was like, you could just get electrical tape, and every time you wear it, just put an X over it. And I still think that might have been the way to go.
I hope feel like someone walked past us when we were just in Dick's Sporting Goods, and I'm looking at the shirt, and I'm just like, I don't know, man, the Cincinnati logo, and you're like, well, you could put duct tape over it, you could get it off, whatever.
I feel like I had to clarify because I do oddly randomly have an Oregon State football jersey that I have had since I was, I think, a freshman in high school. I found it at TJ Maxx for $7, and it's one of the more comfortable around the house shirts or like pieces of clothing that I have. So yeah, I just have an Oregon State jersey. So I did have to clarify, I've got some random clothing, not Kansas State though. So couldn't
any USF merch left over from your childhood in there anywhere?
I don't think so. I think I've cleansed my whole everything.
Whole life.
Yeah.
USF related.
Pretty much, yeah, I think so. But anyway, we got to get into some stuff. Scott will join us in a little bit, but back to UCF UNC. One of the things we touched on it on Saturday night, but this run game has just been not what we expected it to be, and it's been bizarre to see like how things have flipped, and like I'm feeling better about the quarterback position and the passing game and the receivers and all that than I am about UCF's ability to run the ball. And that's not anything against Miles or Jaden Nixon. It's just they just haven't been able to find the running lanes and the room to run, and I think that's going to hurt at some point.
Yeah, it maybe as soon as Saturday. Obviously, we're still thrilled with the way the UNC game played out. I swear to God, this isn't some podcast bait and switch where we're like, now that we got you off the post game, let's talk about why things suck. Very excited about how this team has been playing, and absolutely fair to say that they are clearly ahead of schedule of where I think anybody thought they were going to be 3 games into the season. That all being said, if you can't consistently run the ball, that's going to bite you multiple times. They're going to run into a team, and it might be K-State, who knows, who is going to take away the passing game, and they need to be able to do something in that situation. And to your point, it's not on Miles and it's not on Jaden. They've both basically been doing what they can. There were multiple plays that were positive plays against UNC where really that was them making something out of nothing. Run blocking just hasn't been there. I don't know what they need to do to figure it out, but it just really hasn't been there. And that's at the end of the day, that's kind of a personnel situation. I don't think that's something that you can always easily fix in season. So that might just be the offense they have to live with right now.
I think so. And I think maybe the one thing you can say is that you can try to work around it the best you can and get the screen game going and use that as an extension of the run game and kind of get guys in space and somehow find a way to get the ball to your playmakers in more unconventional ways than just, trying to find different gaps. But I don't know. I feel like it's going to hurt at some point. But we'll talk more about that as we get into the game preview, because Kansas State's defense has not been able to stop the run, and UCF can't run the ball. So something's going to have to give on Saturday. Another thing we would touch on.
I'm just going to tell you really quickly, and I don't mean to like immediately go negative, but in the grand scheme of the world, I feel like Kansas State in the trenches is just always going to scare me regardless of the stat show. So I feel like there's that too, but yeah.
Another thing I wanted to touch on was the kind of the aggressive game management style that Frost kind of showed on Saturday. We talked a little bit. We didn't talk so much about the 4th down conversion toward the end of the game that kind of put the game away. We did talk about how aggressive he was at the end of the first half, calling those timeouts and calling the timeout and, not just being able to get down there and get a field goal, but get down there and score a touchdown. And I felt like that almost took the wind out of any sail. Like, I don't know. UNC wasn't playing well to begin with, and I felt like it was almost like that happening the way it did almost had to send them into the locker room. Like, what are we even going to do? Like, what can we do?
That's the thing, because as invigorating as that moment was for UCF to get that or to get that touchdown and go up by 3 scores at that point right before halftime, that has your team hyped up. The bigger impact is, UNC, that you're just slumping from that. You're like, I cannot believe this, that we were in this, we could try, and now it's just taken away. And I do feel like whenever you're in a situation where your coach just outcoached Bill Belichick, that's good. Probably a good sign for the way things are going. But I love the aggressiveness from Frost. And honestly, he had bits of that when he was here last time. UCF would do, but it felt almost like, not to discount his first tenure, but it felt a little gimmicky at times. Like it was more like, oh, we're like cool and fun. Like we'll go for 2 in weird situations sometimes. Like this was just killer instinct coaching. It was, we are not going to give you a chance. Here go the dogs. We are not going to give you a chance to get back in this no matter what. And if that means taking some risks on our end, then that's what we're going to do.
I'm a little surprised we haven't seen the random 2-point conversion attempts yet, and I'm sure it's coming at some point. But
how about a random onside kick in the middle of the game?
Yeah, I do remember too. Like, and I brought it up, I think more times in the offseason, but there were times where not just the 2-point conversions and not just the kind of the weird gimmicky things, but like he would take some chances where he would like go for it on 4th and 4 from his own 28 at times. I remember, especially in 2016, it felt like he did that more. And I think maybe that was kind of we trust our defense more than we trust our offense in that scenario and in that situation. But yeah, no, I've been happy with the game management thus far, and the more generally the play calling. I thought he varied it up really, really well and just kind of had UNC on its heels for much of the day on Saturday, which I don't know. I complained for years about Gus's play calling and seeing like multiple times being able to be like, I love that call. Oh, I love that call. What a call. It was nice. It was a nice change for Saturday. Yeah. Okay. So there's still some barking going on. Other thing that we can touch on, and this is the weird thing that's been this whole season is the whole quarterback situation. Does UCF know who their quarterback is going to be? And it's like, it's almost been resolved by just, I don't know. It's resolved itself, I guess, without, any fault to Cam Fancher. It just seems like, the injury to Fancher opened the door for Taven to get some time against Jacksonville State. Fancher was obviously still hurt, didn't dress out for North Carolina A&T, but Fancher was dressed on Saturday. Not sure if he was 100%, but he was dressed and on the sideline. But obviously Taven, I think, has played his way into the starting role. I don't feel like there should be any kind of question about it.
It's going to be so funny. It's going to be so funny when Cam starts against K-State. And Frost is just like, well, he was finally healthy, so we're starting him. It's interesting, though, because we talked about how we're assuming that Taven got the start against North Carolina because he had been playing well, and that's why that happened. We don't know that for sure. We will this week, potentially, because now that UCF's in Big 12 play, they have to release injury reports. So if there's something preventing Cam from playing, or even if he's questionable to play, they have to tell the world that. So this is going to be the worst podcast of my life.
Yeah, it's fine. Do you know, I've been meaning to look this up, and it's the different conferences having different rules for when they have to release these different. You and I were talking about it over the weekend about how like this is not anything. The injury report and having to do this for Big 12 games is not going to help us as a podcast because we record so early in the week that we're going to get through our podcast and they'll release the injury reports later in the week. But it'll still be interesting to know and kind of get a sense of where things are and how much of, I guess in this specific scenario, how much of this is Cam still isn't 100% and we got to go with Taven, or Cam's ready to go and could step in if he needed to, but he's more of the backup now than Taven's just the starter.
But I do have to say, because I'm joking when I said the Cam starting thing. Obviously, even if Cam were healthy, I just cannot fathom at this point in time when they're 3-0 and Taven is rocking and rolling. There would be no reason to do that. And that does suck for Cam. It sucks that he lost it due to injury. But, I also had to listen to Gus Malzahn start the wrong quarterback and say the reason he did it is because you don't lose a starting job to injury, which is like a really cool, definitely watch the movie Rudy type attitude. But in modern day college football with as much on the line as on the line, can't do that. Just gotta put out there who's got to be out there. But I do think what's interesting is obviously we saw Jakari, and I'm willing to wager we're going to see more of Jakari, especially since I think if it weren't for that penalty, we were going to see a lot of him on that first drive. I don't necessarily think that means Jakari's the backup. I think they're finding creative ways to use Jakari, and I think that's exciting. But I'm still assuming if Taven were to get hurt, let's say, against Kansas State. I'm assuming Cam Fancher would come in at that point, barring health issues. I don't think Jakari would step into the starting role. I think Jakari would stay in that role that he's in, if that makes sense.
No, I think you're right, and I think honestly, in a weird way, that makes sense. I know I've been since the summer a big Jakari guy, and I've said I would like for him to be the guy, but I'm happy with what Taven's done so far, and it almost makes more sense to. And we talked about this at certain points where you can see Jakari in that role. And if you don't have him in that role, if you start him, the other two are kind of just pushed to the side. Like, you're not going to find time for them.
Yeah.
And, the one thing with Jakari, and I'll be interested to see how they call this going forward, but is it going to always be a tell? Like, is he running the ball? Are they running the ball every time he's in the game?
I trust Scott Frost I trust him more than I can say at this point. Mm-hmm. He's won 16 straight games at UCF. How can you not trust the man? He's unstoppable. But in that trust, there's no way they're not going to have Jakari throw it at some point. He can throw it. In fact, he can throw it deep. So I know it's not always with perfect accuracy, but because you're right, that is going to get old eventually. I think UNC was playing that situational extra safe because that wasn't something UCF put on tape. So that was all brand new to them. Now that teams know that's coming, no, I don't think Jakari is just going to always do that. But at the same time, I also thought what was interesting too, is there were a few situations. So I'm kind of curious how these are going forward. There were a few situations against UNC where it's like 4th and 2, or a couple times that happened. And Taven stayed out there and ran those plays, which I thought was interesting. Because in my head, I'm kind of like, isn't that the perfect play for Jakari? But so I wonder if UCF kind of knows that teams are going to key in on certain things. So I'm curious how they use him going forward. I don't think it's going to be one-dimensional. I don't think it's going to be we're just going to bring him in to run it every now and then. I think we're going to see some stuff, and I think that's exciting.
It's not a one-to-one comparison, but like when it's Army or Navy and they run the option and all that, it's like every once in a while, to keep teams honest, they will hit a pass. And it's almost like they're going to try to do that. They're going to have to try to do that with Jakari because you got to keep teams honest. And if they have to at least think about it. If he hits if he hits even one where, they load the box because they're like, all right, Jakari's in, it's a run. And somebody gets open. And even if it's not a touchdown, even if it's a 30-yard gain, they're like, oh, we kind of have to pay attention, which I don't know.
Not just them. Every team on the schedule from then on is going to go, damn it.
And I don't think I don't know that will happen as much as it does with the service academies, obviously, because they know Jakari is a quarterback. They know he has played quarterback before. So
I don't think you're going to see situations where teams, just completely stack the box and don't even care where, the receivers are and are just like, no, we know he's. I don't think it's going to be like that, but they're definitely going to key in on the run when he's out there. And I think I do think it's super valuable if you can just hit a pass here and there. I'm sure they have some plays where that's an option. Might have been an option on some plays they ran against UNC and it just wasn't there. Who knows? So yeah, I would be very surprised if when you have a quarterback who can throw in that role, like I just can't fathom UCF's going to go, no, you are only out there to run the ball. Yeah, which is so exciting, man. I know what we've been saying all offseason. I feel like I got very unfairly, I might add, painted as anti-Jakari just because I would occasionally point out the many ways that he was, deficient last year. But he's an athlete, man. And I think that having a guy that talented and the ways he's talented, being able to throw him in there, that's a huge advantage for UCF. And I think that is going to make a difference in games.
I think it will. We saw what he did against Iowa State last year. Anytime he's in the game, as much as they might think, okay, he's going to run, he broke out for, I think it was like a 65-yard touchdown run. Like he has that breakaway speed and the vision to make things happen. So you're going to see that, come through, especially for an offense that I'd say for the most part has been more methodical than explosive.
Yep.
He can be an explosive play for you at some point. And that is exciting to have. I did want to clarify, I just looked this up to double check with the daily injury reports or the injury reports itself. They are supposed to be submitted daily starting 3 days before each conference game. And then there's 90 minutes before the actual game. So that would be for this week. Obviously it would be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the pregame availability report. So
one more thing on Jakari really quickly. I also just want to point out he had 4 carries against UNC and he averaged 7.8 yards per carry.
Yeah.
I just have to say that. But yeah, so we'll get our first injury report tomorrow because that's 3 days.
Yeah.
So you guys know more than us about the injuries. Congrats.
It'll be interesting because we're so used to just being like, yeah, we don't really know. And now like the fact that they're going to have to designate them as available, probable, questionable, doubtful, or out.
Well, this is already becoming contentious because Utah had to release a statement because I guess there was some issues with how they classified Devin Dampier, their starting quarterback. I guess he was not on the injury report, but is injured. And their argument was, well, it was never in doubt that he was going to play, so he doesn't belong there. And I don't know. That seems like something you probably list under probable, but they chose to not list it at all. I don't know. No, I think for Big 12, I could be wrong. I thought they only list, like, you're just not on the list if you're not hurt in some way.
I'm only looking. I mean, this could have changed. I'm looking at from August from the AP. They said they will be. Those are the designations in the Big 12. So
we will see tomorrow. I guess
it'll be a thing that happens in men's and women's basketball too. So that's something that we'll get used to.
That one's going to be way more impactful, honestly, than the football one. So that will be
especially with the injury issues that UCF men's basketball always has. So
wait for the men's basketball's first injury report is just the whole team, and they were like, "Oops, we'll see how it goes."
Yeah. One last thing on the UNC game. It's not on the outline, but I wanted to ask you your thoughts. We haven't actually talked about this.
Okay.
The whole
is it Nugget and the fireworks?
No, but that.
Oh, okay.
Wait, what about the fireworks? What do you mean?
Oh, Nugget got spooked by the fireworks. I might have been the only one who noticed this. Nugget was in the tunnel and the fireworks went off for the anthem, and Nugget looked homicidal for a little bit there, and it took them. I did not think Nugget was going to make it to the field. Nugget was freaking out.
Has it been a problem before? I'm sure.
Yeah, there have been games where Nugget was in stadium and did not make it to the field due to behavioral issues.
What a great sentence. I forgot what I was going to. Oh no! So the UCF Twitter mafia basically having to spring into action because there's been an attack on UCF. As you know, UCF put out the quote that we talked about on Saturday night about Scott Frost saying, we're UCF, we're not Central Florida, and then certain like Chris Vanini, for example, was like, oh, people are finding out like what we all learned years ago because he's covered the G5. But there were certain members of the media from different places, different backgrounds that were, they decided, to voice their opinions on this and say, I don't understand it. And real quick, they were texted. What are your thoughts on all this?
Kind of stepping on my tweet of the week a little bit here.
Oh, all right. I didn't know. Well, this is why we don't actually.
I can give a
clear insight into the fact.
I never tell Bailey tweet of the week because I sometimes like to see what your reaction was, and sometimes it bites me. Like now, I can give my general. There's a specific tweet of a person.
Don't go into the specifics. Just I'm curious. About
if you were on Twitter, you've probably been in this person's mentions. But yeah, I think it's all fun. I don't really I'm not one of the UCF fans where I'm like shaking with anger if someone says Central Florida, but I think the great misunderstanding, which was what makes this fun, is I don't really think there are a lot of any UCF fans like that. I think it's just another way for UCF fans to be annoying and piss people off, which is like that whole Twitter saga this weekend was like warming my heart because I'm just sitting here and it's like UCF, Scott Frost is UCF's coach. UCF just beat the crap out of a Power 4 team in the bounce house. The bounce house was rocking. And now opposing fan bases who had nothing to do with the game are like, God, I hate UCF's fans because they won't leave me alone. And I was just like, I'm at peace. Like all is right. Like, like that it just was like another element added to like UCF feeling back was a bunch of fans being pissed at UCF for being annoying. So I don't, I will say, like I said, it's the same thing all UCF fans say. I don't ever see LSU called Louisiana State. I don't see a whole lot of Southern Cal for USC. I don't see any Texas Christian or Southern Methodist for TCU and SMU. So when people go, why won't you just be called by your name? Okay, I don't see you calling any other schools that largely go by their acronym, by their name, but whatever.
What I find hilarious about the whole thing is this came after Bill Belichick called UCF Central last week. And then I saw way more people than I would have expected being like, I kind of like Central. We should lean into this Central thing.
They liked it until other fan bases did it.
Yeah,
said, no.
Calling it Central
Which,
Florida.
by the way, this is an example. By the way, UCF AP vote receiving team. By the way, UCF is receiving votes in the AP.
And now you're stepping on the news.
Whatever. It's okay when I do it. It's just when you do it, it's a problem.
Yeah. You do it way more often. But
it's like 90% me, but it's fine. This is why UCF, from like a brand perspective and just stuff, because UCF really played in the Central thing. They changed their Twitter name to Central and stuff like that. Big Noon talked about Bill Belichick calling UCF Central. Sports Center, after the night was over, talked about Bill Belichick calling UCF Central. The Nitro holding up the W on the beach pose, making fun of Belichick, got an insane amount of social media play. Like it's why I love this stuff, because it's like, weirdly enough, it's how UCF always projects itself into relevance, if that makes sense. It's like the dumb stuff like that just takes off.
Yeah, and that again, it goes back into what you said about, they're back. Not in terms of like UCF undefeated is back, but more so UCF is being, the annoying UCF again, and that in a sense is more UCF is back than, we're all fighting with each other about random stuff each week. But all right,
I did see a couple tweets about Zombie Nation not played enough, so that might be.
Oh, that one. Okay, that was probably Brian, but no, I thought you were going to talk about the. We do have alums and students fighting already, so I shouldn't have even said that because
that's fun.
Yeah,
that's what it's all about, man.
We're having to deal with that again. But all right, let's move into this week. We're moving on. UCF 3-0. They're going on the road for the first time this season at 1-3. Kansas State, who was 0-1 in Big 12 play. We will now welcome on my boss at pewterreport.com, Scott Reynolds. I have done, I don't know how many podcasts with him over the years.
Yeah.
And this is the first time he's actually been a guest. It's weird. It's a weird dynamic that we're moving
into
here. But Scott, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing better than the Kansas State Wildcats. So there's that.
It's not saying much these days.
I know.
Scott,
hard times in Manhattan.
You were responsible for making our trip to Memphis a few years ago, our favorite trip ever because of your restaurant recommendations. We have to thank you publicly for that. I think we have before, but to your face, we have to thank you for it.
Okay, yeah. So let's see. Rendezvous for the ribs.
Yep.
And Gus's fried chicken.
Yep. We basically, you gave Bailey a list, and I feel like we just worked our way down the list.
Yeah, that's good.
It was excellent. Did you recommend the donut place we went to?
Yes.
Donuts too.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
The donuts were phenomenal.
We cleared a dozen of them, and I timed it on my phone. It was 8.
No, it was 6. It wasn't a dozen.
It was 6 each, man.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Probably 6 each. Yeah.
It was not 6 each. I have the picture.
Yeah.
Real quick before we move into our questions for
Gibson's
Scott.
Donuts in Memphis.
Yes.
That's the place. Yeah.
There we go.
Real quick before we move into questions for Scott on UCF Kansas State. Scott, you may not know, but I have a new segment this year for our game previews called A Fact You May Not Know.
Okay.
And I assume you'll probably know this one. Last week, Christian messed with me and I started saying my fact and he started shaking his head and acting like he knew it, but he didn't. This one for Kansas State, this is a Kansas State alum, PhD, Charlie Hall. He is credited with being the creator of the Crimson Sweet Watermelon, which is the most widely grown and widely consumed watermelon in the country. And
I did not know that.
I didn't know that.
We're a bit of an ag school, but I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a picture here of him with one of the watermelons. It's actually very nice. If I can get the, it's not going to really. Yeah, there he is.
First and last guy in human history who put on a suit to take a photo with a watermelon.
Right.
I was laughing earlier though because Christian, you mentioned the photo of the fruit behind you at your parents' house, and I was like, oh, this actually works.
Maybe really a K-State alum took this photo. Who knows?
Maybe, yeah.
All right, so we'll get into this preview, Scott. This game Saturday noon on FS1 in Manhattan. I just kind of want to get some thoughts generally on Kansas State. Generally speaking, is there any sense that K-State can turn this season around after the bye week? Because they had a bye week last week.
They did. It's now or never. This is the stand that they have to take and the stand they have to make against a team in UCF that, I'm not trying to slander the Knights, but not probably in the class of Iowa State or Texas Tech, right? Some of the topper teams in the upper echelon of the Big 12 this year. But listen, this is not the same Kansas State team and the same UCF team that did battle in Manhattan a couple of years ago. DJ Giddens is gone. And boy, could they use him because he tore up the Knights that day. I was actually there in Manhappiness, which is not too happy right now with the 1-3 Wildcats. And it's been a shell-shocked start for the Wildcats. It's one thing to put up a lot of the emotional investment in going overseas to Ireland and playing your arch rival. Sorry, Kansas, it's not you, it's Iowa State and Farmageddon overseas and losing that game in a close, heartbreaking fashion by 3 points. And now Iowa State has swept Kansas State in each of the last 3 years. then you come home and you're supposed to have that get well game, that good feeling. Okay, we got North Dakota coming in here, and they barely beat North Dakota. They had to have a last minute comeback. They gave up 5 touchdowns on defense, and they barely won that game. So that was not the good feeling get well game where you put your backups in at halftime and roll up the score. Then some scheduling genius decided to put Army on the schedule, and which is just dumb. I mean, that was a dumb decision. I know the home of the Big Red One, Fort Riley's literally about 20 minutes outside of Manhattan. It made sense for everybody in the stands in the state of Kansas and all of that. But for the players on the field that have to go up against any of the service academies, the cut blocks, the triple option, it's tough to defend. And K-State is kind of caught in no man's land between trying to go to a 4-man front this year and play some of their 3-3-5 defense, which they have played the last couple of years. So that didn't work out. They lost another close game. Then they go on the road to Arizona the game before the bye and get throttled there. They were down 17-3 at half and tried to make a little bit of a comeback. And I just think that for whatever reason, this year there was just no physicality in the trenches, and that's very un-K-State-like. They've lost on both sides of the ball pretty much in every game. And it's disheartening to see because Kansas State, it's a mid to upper level program. It's not an elite program by any means, but it's one of those things where it's like, we went down to Texas a couple years ago, had them on the ropes, and we lost. But you know what? It's like you knew that you played K-State, so we bloodied your nose. We gave you a black eye. We might have taken the L, but you knew you're in a fight. And so either we win that way or we lose that way, but we don't get bullied around. We don't get, beaten without putting up a fight. And that's the story this year. This team has not put up a fight. They don't have good leadership. They have not found an identity on offense or defense. There's really nothing that they can hang their hat on this year. And it has Chris Klieman absolutely perplexed. I think the assistants have let him down. This is not a well-coached football team. There's a lot of problems to fix, and I'm not sure if they can fix them with one bye week or even later this year.
When you talk about the lots of problems to fix, is there one specific thing that stands out to you as the problem? Is it the lack of physicality? Is it something with Avery Johnson? What is just the one thing above all, if you could fix one problem?
It's attitude and effort. That's what every kid can fix, is their attitude and their effort. It's that simple. There's so many variables in football, right? You have 11 guys playing on one team versus 11 guys on the other on any given down, whether it's offense, defense. You don't know what the play call is going to be on defense. On offense, you don't know if all of the guys are going to do their job and allow that play to get executed. There's so many variables, but the one thing you can control as an individual football player, regardless of what position you play, is your attitude and your effort. And the attitude is, are you a fighter? Are you going to get back up after you've been knocked down? If everything's equal, are you going to throw the first punch? Are you going to be the guy that's going to exert your will on your opponent? The effort is, am I going to come out ready to play football? Am I going to come out excited? To hear Avery Johnson say, yeah, we came out flat against the Arizona Wildcats on offense again. Say, why are you coming out flat? I don't understand this. You're on scholarship to play at a big-time Big 12 university. Some of you are getting paid NIL money, okay? John Gruden is famous for saying, there's 365 days a year, man. I need you for like 12, And for Gruden, it was like 16 back in the day in the NFL. But, I mean, when you do the math, you're talking, I need you to be amped up, ready to play, excited to play football for like 12 days out of the year, okay? Out of 365, can you show up excited to play for 12? And it's just baffling. And I think when you look at the coaching staff, this is supposed to be a player-led program. The players have not done a good job leading this program. And the two fire starters on that coaching staff, the strength and conditioning coach, who is very well liked, Coach Truman Carroll, they call him Coach True, big old dude. He's now over at USC. And he was that guy, even, not a position coach, but will get you fired up in the weight room. And then on game day, he is the emotional engine on the sidelines. The other guy is Connor Riley, who was the offensive coordinator, an offensive line guru, and really got it going in the trenches. He was the guy that would MF you. He was the prick, the asshole on the coaching staff that would get in your face and, suck it up, buttercup, like we better come on and bring it. And the Dallas Cowboys plucked him to be their offensive line coach in Dallas. He's reunited with Cooper Beebe in Dallas now. And they just don't have that guy on the coaching staff to light a fire. And you shouldn't have to light a fire, but sometimes you need that. If it's not going to come from the players, it should come from the coaches. And I think everyone's looking around like, who's going to start this fire? And nobody has.
It's interesting to hear that because, it is, even from an outside standpoint, we obviously follow the Big 12. We follow college football, but we've been shocked to see what Kansas State has done so far. And it's been surprising to see. Move a little bit into kind of breaking down the offense versus defense, and we'll start UCF's offense versus Kansas State's defense. And if you go breaking it down by the numbers, it seems like Kansas State's defense has generally been more reliable than the offense, at least more consistent. Would you agree with that? And what level of blame would you give, if any, to the way the defense has played so far this year?
I think part of it's almost like you have to throw the Army game out because there just wasn't any pass rush there because Army's quarterback ran the ball 40 times by himself, So that's kind of a weird game that you almost have to kind of remove. You can't remove the L, you earned it, but that's just such a different wild card offense with the triple option that you're just not going to see again. So I think there have been times when the pass rush has shown up. I think there have been times when the secondary has played okay, but almost kind of like the Buccaneers last year, it was one or the other. It was never both at the same time on defense, and I think that was part of the issue in Tampa Bay having struggles on defense, and I think we're seeing that kind of on Saturdays for me with Kansas State. They just haven't seemed to put it together. The turnovers haven't been there. It seems like on every drive, one element is missing. And it's been frustrating because Coach Kleiman is a defensive-minded coach. He's had Joe Klanderman, the defensive coordinator, there for years at K-State. He's generally done a pretty good job. But I think some of their stars haven't shined. B.J. Payne and Austin Romaine are two of their captains. B.J. Payne was considered probably as a day 2 draft pick prior to this season. His draft stock has taken an absolute hit. He may not even play, or he might have to rotate in the game. He's a senior, but he has had a terrible season to start. Lost in coverage, doesn't seem to know his responsibility. The 3-3-5 switch to the 4-3 defense has affected him probably more than anybody else. And Austin Romaine, same thing, kind of a day 2, maybe early day 3 draft pick. He's been okay, but he just hasn't made the splash plays. There just isn't that superhero guy that is going to come and save the day on the defensive side. They don't have that one guy that is the bell cow that's going to make the play, that's going to turn the tide. And so, I don't know. I'm curious to see if this defense can really make a stand. They haven't really so far. They have not had that one shining moment where you're like, okay, here's some signs of hope. I think probably the best player on defense is Quay Moss, who has been a blitzing defensive back. He had an interception in the last game. He's been the lone guy who's tried to light the fire on defense, but not enough teammates have rallied around him.
Interesting. You're muted.
Me?
I think no, it's me.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm watching my parents' dogs, and they're going a little barking fits here and there. So I'm trying to dodge around.
You're trying to send the dogs after the cats. I get it, Christian. Right.
I'm as discombobulated as K-State's defense. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But on to the offensive side of things, let's talk about Avery Johnson. Yeah. I remember when K-State landed him. That was like reverberations through college football level, a big deal for a player of that caliber to stay there, to go to K-State. The leap hasn't happened this year. It feels like from an outsider's perspective. Is that Is that on Avery Johnson? Is it on how the coaching staff is using him? What's kind of led to him not turning into that guy that was supposed to elevate the program to new heights, basically?
That is the $64 million question that every Wildcat fan wants to know. Like, what's going on with Avery Johnson? A couple things. Number one, he leaned on DJ Giddens last year, big time. Easiest thing for a quarterback to do, turn around and hand the ball off, right? And when you have a good running game like Kansas State had last year with an NFL caliber running back, and let's face it, he had Deuce Vaughn the year before, right? So he's had two really good running backs to work with. Now, this year, the running game has completely vanished. They really don't have that guy. They don't have a starting caliber running back. They're trying to find him. I mean, they used 4 running backs at Arizona because they don't have one. They're trying to find somebody. They're probably taking walk-ons this week. Anybody on campus want to try out for the team? I mean, come on, because they need a running back. It pains Coach Kleiman, who came from North Dakota State, where they run the ball an awful lot, to not be able to lean on the running game. And so it's put more pressure on Avery Johnson. Well, why can't Avery Johnson run the ball? You think of all of the Kansas State quarterbacks that have run the ball successfully, from Michael Bishop, the Heisman Trophy runner-up in 1998, to El Roberson. Will Howard actually was a bit of a dual threat quarterback. Mm-hmm. And then you had Colin Klein, who was a Heisman Trophy runner-up as well. And those quarterbacks, a lot of them ran the Wildcat offense, which started at K-State. That's why it's called the Wildcat. With Avery Johnson, he's not a power runner. He's not willing to stick his nose in there and get the tough yards, and it's painful to see. And you'll see this on Saturday. He'll run, and he'll run out of bounds, or he'll run, and as he's bracing for contact, he'll literally do this and turn his back and try to protect himself. And it's like, son, this is football, man. You signed up to play football. This isn't soccer, okay? When you need a yard, get a yard. When you need 3 yards, get 3 yards. The whole team, the whole school is on your back. It's your responsibility as the quarterback to do what's necessary to get the yards, to get the first down, to get the touchdown, to get the win. We see Rocco Beck do that and play like that. And you saw that with the game-winning touchdown from Rocco Beck last year against UCF in that Iowa State game, right? A game that UCF was like that close to winning. Rocco Beck put the Cyclones on his back, went right through the UCF defense and scored the game-winning touchdown himself, running the ball. Diego Pavia has done the exact same thing at Vanderbilt. He is the heartbeat, the soul. We see it in Tampa with Baker Mayfield, right? It's just that type of quarterback. Avery Johnson is not that guy. And for a school that has a rich history of the Colin Kleins, the Michael Bishops, the O. Robersons, even the Skylar Thompsons, he would run the ball. Will Howard would run the ball. This kid has the speed, 23 miles per hour, but he's so hesitant to run. And we think that maybe he's getting coached not to run. Don't get hurt, Avery. Don't get hurt. We need you. Okay. And they're trying to make him into a pocket passer, and he's just not. He can't go through progressions well enough. He overthrows the ball, doesn't put enough touch on some passes. He's a good quarterback, supposed to be a dual threat quarterback, but Matt Wells, the play caller, has been disastrous this year, terrible play calls. And I think that has tried to coach the running instincts out of Avery Johnson, and it's hurt this offense.
We talked a little bit earlier about the trenches and how disappointing it's been to see Kansas State not live up to its normal mentality and its kind of stature in the trenches. One thing I did notice, and that was, we talk a lot about running the ball, but in pass protection, from what I could see, no sacks allowed outside of a running back allowing a sack, not picking up a blitzer. How good has the K-State O-line been in pass protection? And, how much of that has been, okay, we've got such a good O-line, we want Avery to sit in the pocket and throw, when he can't really do that as consistently as you'd like him to?
It's a little bit of a mirage because Avery's mobility has helped him avoid some sacks. There have been some times where he scrambled, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. But he's been able to avoid those sacks. I would say the offensive line, it's 4 out of 5. Somebody out of the 5 blows a block on just about every passing play. And so on one side of the ball, you think, well, can't run the ball very well, so maybe let's just try to throw the ball, because they can pass protect better than they can run the ball, right? Even though that's not what Kleiman wants them to do. He wants them to have the identity of running the ball and being physical up front, but it's kind of like, how many wasted downs do you want to try to invent or reinvent an offensive line that hasn't really done that? It's almost like we're going to find out in the first quarter exactly what the hell happened over the bye week. And if this team truly has fixed some issues. And if they haven't fixed some issues, if they don't have a lead by the end of the first quarter at home against a Big 12 opponent after a bye week, then this team might be a lost cause. But it's a little bit of fool's gold, Bailey, with the offensive line. Okay. They're not that good, at least not through the first 4 games. There have been probably 5 or 6 clear sacks that, if not for Avery's mobility, they would have been negative plays.
Okay.
So one thing that I feared about joining the Big 12 as a UCF fan was having to regularly play in Manhattan, Kansas. Genuinely, of the environments UCF has to deal with in this conference, one of the ones I personally fear the most. That came true a little bit in 2023.
Yeah.
Help me out here, because I don't know what to make of that environment in 2025. I know that the record's really good. I know it's still a very foreboding place to play, and I'm sure it will be this Saturday. But then when you see things like a loss to Army, with an FCS, how much of an impact or not an impact at this point is that home environment? How much of a home field advantage is UCF going to have to deal with?
K-Staters are pretty loyal, and they're going to show up. They're going to give this team another chance. They're invested. They're going to show up, and they're going to do their part to try to will this team to win, to try to, hey, if the players aren't going to be energetic, if the coaches aren't going to be energetic, they're going to try, as the fan base, to try to have 52,000 people get this team finally fired up. Football's a big deal in Manhattan. It is. Saturdays in Manhattan, it's a big deal. I remember there was a lot of consternation in taking the home game against Iowa State off the map and going over to Ireland. That was a big deal that really pissed off a lot of K-Staters. It's like, hey, we'll play Farmageddon in Ireland, but like, can that be Iowa State's game like next year? Like, can we do this next year rather than lose a home game? Because they do have a home field advantage. But then again, this year it really hasn't been. I mean, they barely escaped North Dakota, barely. And they were down in the fourth quarter in that game. I mean, they were down at halftime. I mean, it was an ugly, ugly win. And then Army, kind of the same thing. They lost at home. That doesn't typically happen, especially to non-conference foes. So it can be a dangerous place to play, but at the same time, like, the fans don't play, the players do. So it's really up to them. Fans are going to show up. How long they actually stay in their seats is going to depend on what the score is by the third or fourth quarter.
Okay, because that's been something that I've been interested in. I saw you obviously last week at the Bucs facility. I saw you on Sunday at the game, and you have been trying to, it seems like, reverse jinx me, whatever it is, with this game, with this matchup. You sent the clip earlier into our group chat of you on the JP Peterson show wearing a UCF shirt. I'm surprised you actually didn't wear that for this podcast. I thought you might have a
I'm
trick
messing
up
with your head, Bailey.
There. You are.
Yeah.
And I keep telling you, I'm like, Scott, the game is in Manhattan. I'm afraid of this. And you're like, it doesn't matter. Yeah. So with all of that, just some last general thoughts on this matchup. And before we let you get out of here, a score prediction. Who's winning and what's the score?
Boy, that's really tough. I'm going to say the Knights are going to win. I just don't believe. I'm serious.
I don't know how much of that is you're messing with my head.
No, I'm being dead serious, Bailey. I'm true to my school so much that I wore this. I didn't want to be a turncoat twice in the same day. So I'm repping K-State here. But at the same time, I'm also a realist. I got to look at the facts. And I was on the Go PowerCat podcast last night with it's just kind of computer report for Kansas State, and was on there with all of their reporters, and was an honor to do that show. And I think we're all a bunch of realists. It's like, okay, talk is cheap. And, we've kind of heard, okay, after the Army game, we'll get it fixed. They came out, they played flat at Arizona. They were down 17-3 at half. They showed signs of life in the third quarter. They blocked a punt. The first play of the game, they had a 75-yard run from their wide receiver, Jace Brown, out of Wildcat for a touchdown. And did that ignite a fire? No, it was just a spark, and the flame went out pretty quickly. So I just haven't seen any true, tangible signs of life from this team. Does it mean K-State's automatically going to lose? No. If this was Texas Tech, which I'm going to the Texas Tech game in a couple of weeks, not excited about that because we're going to get our asses handed to us. But if it was against a Utah, a Texas Tech, Iowa State again, and another upper echelon team, I would not think we have a chance. I think K-State has a chance at home against UCF, but at the same time, listen, I'm not going to disrespect the Knights. Not that North Carolina's a world beater, but that wasn't a close game. I mean, they handled business, and this would be a little bit of a challenge going on the road. And Manhattan can be a loud environment. I think if you survive the first quarter, if you survive the first half, and it's even or UCF's ahead, I have no doubt that UCF can pull this off. I think if Kansas State's going to win, it's going to be a very, very, very close game that comes down to the fourth quarter. If UCF wins, I think there's a chance this could be like a double-digit, I don't say blowout, but like 10, 14, 17 points. I could see UCF do that because the problem is this is not a very confident team right now. And unless they do something on the field in the first quarter, if they have a lead at halftime or something, that's going to help. But I think right now their confidence is shaken, and UCF has an opportunity to come into Manhattan, punch K-State right in the chin, and knock them down and knock them out because there's not enough goodwill, good plays, good play, period, from the first four games to draw from to say, hey, we can do this. This is North Dakota. This is UCF. This is legit Big 12 school that's undefeated. So to me, that's going to be the confidence test, is how much fight does this team have when something goes wrong, when something is awry in special teams, or if Avery throws a pick six or something like that. Can they overcome that? I don't know that they've got the confidence to do that. So I think a lot of things have to go the right way for K-State to win this game. I don't think they're going to. I think a lot of the problems that this program has pertain to the coaching staff, pertain to some of the star players just not being star players and not showing up this year. I think it's a systemic issue that is dated all the way back to spring ball, and you can't fix a lot of that stuff in the regular season. I'm concerned that once something starts to go wrong for the Cats, they're not going to know how to make it right during the game.
Okay, Christian, your thoughts, your score prediction for this one, because I'm still thinking about mine.
All right, I'm gonna actually balance this out perfectly and piss off our own audience. I have UCF losing. it's like Scott just explained all the billion things wrong, and I'm like, that being said, UCF will still find a way to lose this game. I have 28-24 Kansas State, and my reasoning is a couple things. One is things have been disastrous for K-State. I think that's obvious.
Yeah.
I maybe because I'm too outside of it, I trust them too much as a program to expect that to continue throughout the season. I think they will have a bounce back at some point. I worry it's going to be UCF. I also just worry that it seems like one of their weaknesses is run defense, and I'm just not sure that's something that UCF can take advantage of. And if I when Taven Jackson was on, like he was against UNC, and they were completing basically every throw, that's great. But if K-State can take that away even a little bit, I'm not sure that UCF can account for it on the ground. So going with a narrow K-State win, which I still think would be a solid result for UCF in what is a building from complete scratch season, but we will see. Bailey, take it over.
That didn't help because leading back all the way before the UNC game, I was like, no matter what happens on Saturday, I'm not picking UCF to go on the road and beat Kansas State. After the game on Saturday, I was like, I still think they'll lose to Kansas State. I just don't think it's going to happen. Scott has gotten in my head. He has continued to tell me how bad Kansas State is and how UCF's just going to come in and get a win. I was picking UCF. Christian, you just made me think UCF can't win. I don't know. I'm going to stick with what I had in my head before. UCF 24, Kansas State 20. I don't feel good about it. I don't feel good about it at all.
So none of us feel good about.
No.
Great. All right.
Let's just not even watch the game, shall we? Let's just look at the score when it's.
I'm glad it's at noon. I'm glad it's at noon.
Oh yeah, get this out of the way, please. Yeah, so I can continue on with my Saturday.
Yeah, Scott. So you've successfully gotten in my head, and I don't like it. I'm not happy about it, but
not even done on purpose, Bailey. I'm trying to be true to my school, but I'm also telling the truth.
I think it is on purpose.
The wearing a UCF shirt feels a little on purpose.
That was earlier, yeah.
To maybe clear that up as to why you have it
twisted. I want Kansas State to win. I mean, let's not get it twisted.
Sure,
I would prefer that outcome. Okay, but at the same time, I'm just being honest, and I'm not saying anything that any other Kansas State media person hasn't said. This is a team in trouble. This is not the Kansas State Wildcats team from a year ago or from years ago. This is a shock to the system at everybody in Manhattan, from Chris Lyman all the way down, and including the fan base. So it's where do they go from here? I'll leave you guys with this. Martin Gramatica, former Kansas State kicker, was known as Automatica Gramatica here in Tampa. He suffered a kicking slump. And I want to say it was maybe 2003 or 2004. He suffered a groin injury, started missing some kicks. And I remember asking him, and I said, Martin, I said, man, you've missed a couple in a row. You're banged up, but what do you do to get out of this? And he looked at me and he said, I don't know. I've never been here before. He didn't have any slump in high school to draw from, didn't have any slump at K-State. He was an All-American kicker, Luke Rose Award winner. Was a third-round draft pick by the Buccaneers, helped them win a Super Bowl, was a Pro Bowl kicker, I think, one year. He didn't know how to get out of the slump, and he never really did. His career was never the same. I think the Bucs brought him back for another year, and then he had a couple of years in New Orleans, but just injuries caught up with him, and he was done. But that's always stuck with me. It's like when you don't have experience in getting out of the downward spiral, how do you do that? Sometimes you can, and sometimes you just can't. And I'm just not sold that this Kansas State team will be able to get out of the downward spiral they're in right now. If they are, it's going to be on Saturday. That will be the stand that they'll make. And again, we'll know in the first quarter which way our program's going to go. It's going to show up early. The attitude, the effort, the performance, it's going to be there early, because if it's not, it's going to be a long day in Manhattan for Kansas State.
The point of desperation, it scares me. But thank you, Scott, for your insight into Kansas State. Thank you for joining us.
John Bailey.
This has been fun. I do have to say, right before you get out of here, you have the UCF shirt. You always tell me charge on. You do have a little bit of an affinity for UCF that
I do. Yeah,
you've thrown aside a little bit this year when Josh Capo's USF Bulls have done well, but I do know where your true loyalties in that rivalry lie, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm actually undefeated in watching the Knights play. I was even at the Gasparilla Bowl when they beat Florida. I'm undefeated at the Bounce House. The only UCF loss I've actually witnessed in person was to the Wildcats in Manhattan. So we'll see what happens on the return trip. And I'll see you next year at the Bounce House when Kansas State plays UCF. That'll be
finally. Finally. But thank you, Scott. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it, guys.
So
thank you. Yep.
Thanks a ton.
Christian, getting one last little thing here. I don't know which way this is going at all. I picked UCF and I don't feel good about it.
Let me just say really quickly that my favorite part of this whole podcast was when you say to Scott, I feel like you're trying to mess with me. And he just goes, that is correct. Just a matter of fact, this was excellent. This is how my brain works, because definitely I knew things were bad at K-State. And honestly, when we were researching for this podcast, I was like, because I've been with you, I've been with you the whole time on, I don't think they can win this game. And as we were researching over the last couple of days, and I was realizing, I think things are worse than I thought. And Scott really kind of sold that point home. I don't know, man. I think I'm trying to mentally protect myself a little bit when I predict.
I don't blame you.
But I do think part of it is I think that, especially we're still early in the season, I do think that there's a tendency to just kind of think the way things have gone is the way they're going to stay in college football. Like we're very week to week like that. And they're too good of a program with too good of players and too good of a coaching staff to just be this the whole season. I don't know if UCF's the game they figured out. I know that if UCF had run the ball better through these first few games, I'd be feeling a lot better, because I'd just be saying, well, that's what they'll take advantage of. But
we had RJ Harvey.
The one thing I think I can rule out, I don't even know if I can. I was going to say UCF getting blown out, but even then I don't know, because if UCF can't get the passing game going and the run blocking stays an issue, then they might just not be able to score. But I think the thing I feel best about is I do think UCF's defense has the potential to create nightmares for Avery Johnson and for that offensive line. So I don't know. I will say, when Scott's talking about winning, UCF going in there and winning by 14 or 17, can you imagine how delirious UCF Twitter is going to be if that happens? If UCF goes into Manhattan and wins by 17.
That statement right there is why I don't blame you for protecting yourself mentally by picking K-State, because I picked UCF, and in the back of my mind I'm like, that's too good to be true. Like it can't.
The vibes would be unbelievable if Scott Frost came back to UCF out of nowhere, started 4-0, beat up on the first two Power 4 teams on the schedule.
One of them being on the road.
One of them being on the road where Gus Malzahn famously couldn't get a win in UCF's first ever Big 12 game. And it being like, well, Scott Frost just rolled in and beat him. Like, it's just the narratives would be out of freaking control.
I want it so bad. I do.
I do too.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll jump into the
can I just
news.
say, can I really quickly, we're at an hour, so I should extend the podcast. I do think it's really cool because I did not at any point from when Frost was hired in December to when we got the football schedule to all of our offseason podcasts week after week for months and months to now, never did I think we'd be sitting here talking about UCF going for potentially starting 4-0 as if that's like the most likely outcome right now. Mm-hmm. And I think it's fair to say that given the direction of both teams, I think the most likely outcome is UCF wins, which is it's crazy we're here. It's crazy.
So it's interesting because the Vegas odds are like way different than I would have expected.
It's like 6.5 K-State, right?
Yeah, I think it's 6.5 K-State. I would have assumed K-State would have been favored just because they're at home, and you imagine even for what UCF did for themselves by doing what they did on Saturday and taking care of business like that, I don't think they still have the kind of stature for Vegas to say they're going to go in and win. But I thought it would have been 3.5. 4, something like that.
I don't know, because you say that the old adage is you get 3 points for being at home, right?
Yeah.
And then so you get 3 on top of that where they get to 6.5. But I don't know. You are. Bailey's an absolute degenerate. I say that. You do. I'm just making fun of Bailey for no reason. I feel like Vegas, every single Big 12 game that has ever played is like somewhere between 3.5 and 6.5. And that's just like what they do for any Big 12 game that is being played.
Yeah, I think that's true. I will own that too. I mean, yeah, it's true, but it's not, but it sometimes is.
What, the degenerate thing?
Yeah.
Oh, it's very true.
Yeah.
But the good thing for you is that you do, I say, I'm the one who drives to Tampa to go to Hard Rock and gamble, but I just don't do sports gambling. I will say that you'll be I always laugh when I'm watching sports. You're living and dying by some parlay, and I'll be like, oh, how much do you have down on this? And you're like, $4.
Yeah, that's why I never win, is because I do the big payout ones where it's like, I'll put $4 down, and if it hits, I'll win 100, and I'll feel like that would be great.
That'd be cool.
And I don't have the funds to be like, yeah, let me throw $10 down on this parlay that's not going to hit. So.
We have friends, these friends, who are genuine degenerates, and I know one of them listens who's going to hear that comment and either be upset or pleased. They unironically, jokes aside, tried to convince me to put $1,500 down on UCF to cover against Jacksonville State. Did not do that. What a life I'd be living right now.
They didn't either, right?
They did not. I told them not to, and they didn't. Lord. And so we're good. Could have been bad, but we're good.
Could have been. All right, football news real quick. UCF of the NFL, some updates. Same 2 players we've been talking about. Matt Prater was 1 of 2 on field goals and 4 of 4 on point after attempts in the Bills' 31-21 win over the Dolphins on Thursday night. And then RJ Harvey, once again, not featured very heavily for the Broncos. He had 2 carries for 2 yards. He did have 3 catches on 3 targets for 14 yards as the Broncos lost 23-20 to the Chargers on Sunday afternoon. I didn't get to see any of that game, so actually looking that up today was the first time I even saw his stat line, and I'm annoyed because I don't know. I want the breakout to happen one of these days, and I'm just I don't know. It should, but I don't know when.
I'm starting to get scared.
We'll see. As you mentioned earlier, UCF received 3 votes in this week's AP poll following their 34-9 win over North Carolina. I really didn't see it coming. I texted you. Yeah. I texted you I was at the Bucs game, and I'm in the middle of the Bucs game when it comes out, and I just saw, I think it was Reddit CFB posted, these teams are also receiving votes, and I saw UCF's logo, and I texted you and I said, UCF's receiving votes? And you're like, are they?
I didn't even bother to check. I didn't think to check. Yeah. I checked the poll to see, and I checked where the Big 12 teams were ranked, and I said, okay, cool. And then
you
I
didn't even
scroll my life. No, I've been on the homepage reading about the AP poll, and it never occurred to me. Now, not to rain on the celebratory parade of UCF fans who were like #we're back. It was one voter who put UCF at 23rd and notched 3 points. So it was one voter but that being said, this is the value of getting in the conversation, is because the AP poll in particular is it's something that matters a lot and that means a lot to everybody. And it's also a very online thing. So that will affect UCF positively if they keep winning here. They're already getting some votes, because then when other voters who are on the beat and it's 2 a.m., they got to turn their ballot, are like, oh God, who the hell do I put at 25? Oh, UCF got some votes. Oh, they're 4-0. Okay, screw it. I'll throw them in there. Like that's how you rise. So yeah, still very valuable.
It'd be nice. UCF Kansas next Saturday. That will kick off at 7:30 p.m. on ESPN2. So we got a night game in the back.
Solid TV placement, solid time placement.
Yeah. Yeah, and I said to you, because you were like, I'm happy with that. And I was like, I'm not. Florida State, Miami's at the same time. And you jokingly were like, UCF will outperform them. But that is the downside of that placement. But I'll take a 7:30 kick on ESPN2 in the bounce house.
I think that I'm like, it's like hierarchy of needs. Do you have to learn that in school?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know if I remembered it. And I don't want to get back into
it's
triangles.
You learn it in the same lesson as Pythagorean theorem. It's crazy. And it's like, like when you need water.
A squared plus B squared equals C squared.
When you need water. Okay, what's that mean, Bailey?
I'll never forget it again. The two sides, and I was on to it, but the two sides, I'm going to get memed again for using my hands.
Go ahead.
But there's the one side, there's the A side, the B side. Those two sides, you square them, they equal it's a right triangle. They equal, I think it's the hypotenuse. They equal that number squared.
Okay. If you had just spoken to me in Russian, I would have understood more than I did there. But again, math ain't my thing. But hierarchy of needs is like, like when you need water, that's like your main need. So you're like, all you think about is I need water. Once you have water, you move on to another need. You're like, well, I have water, so now I need food. I'm like so low on hierarchy of needs that for the first time in a while, I'm like, I really don't care. The TV numbers can come out and it can come out that 4 people watch UCF Kansas. I'm like, let's win some games. Let's just get back to like trying to go to a bowl. And then I'll go back to worrying about like brand reputation, all that. So I'm lower in my hierarchy of needs than I used to be. I've been kicked down a few pegs given recent events of UCF's recent season.
And I have seen some people say that UCF Kansas, for the fans wear people who listen to that, which I'm one of them. It's fans' choice for that game, but I do like the idea. I forget who put it out there, but somebody said that they should pivot to a blackout, because a blackout for a night game like that feels like it'd be a better idea. But
yeah, if only there was a podcast that's been saying for 5 years, just do whiteouts for day games and blackouts for night games and stop with all the fans we're not. If only there was a podcast that had offered that very simple idea. But whatever. No, let's tell fans if they want to bring their Canaveral blue jerseys back this week, they can.
Yeah. After wearing black for a 3:30 kick on Saturday, and that was that. Which I know you got into with Brian over that. So I shouldn't have even said that.
We're not getting into it again. Guys, you have phones. Google it. I'm extra hot when I wear black. It's scientifically not true. Like, it's not a real thing, but whatever.
And he said, you can say that from up in your press box.
Game of the I gotta tell you, and I didn't reply this to him because I knew he'd be mad. It was pretty hot in the press box. I don't know if they had the air running.
Great. UCF game of the week. UCF women's soccer. They're 6-1-1. They're 0-0-1 in the Big 12 this season. They're in Arizona this week for 2 games against the Arizona schools. But the one for game of the week here is at Arizona State on Sunday at 4:00. Arizona State is 8-0-1 and 1-0-0 in the Big 12. So that's the big one this week. They do play Arizona. I believe it's Thursday night at 10 o'clock if you're up late wanting to watch some UCF women's soccer. They're up 10 o'clock Thursday night at Arizona, but 4:00 Sunday against Arizona State's the big one. Tweet of the week.
Tweet of the week, as teased earlier in this podcast. Tweet of the week this week goes to Chris Williams at Chris M. Williams, who, according to his bios with Cyclone Fanatic, Iowa State site, he made the mistake that many before him have made of questioning why UCF would not just go by Central Florida. The specific tweet, because there are a lot of them, he tweeted about this. He tweeted through it for 4 days and was like, screw it. You guys are the Gold Knights now. Got very upset. Shout out to Chris for being just completely discombobulated by UCF's fan base. But anyway, the tweet he gets tweeted the week before, he tweeted at one point, made one comment, and now I have all of these Central Florida trolls in my reply. Maybe the most annoying fan base in the Big 12, pushing Utah, which is saying something. And I just want to take a moment to thank you, Chris, for that huge compliment. That really does mean a lot to me personally, because one thing that we really lost last year, what with UCF being very bad at football, was we haven't been able to really introduce ourselves and our culture to the other Big 12 fan bases as much as we would have liked, because last year was so rough. And I'm glad that we can now take some time to teach the other Big 12 programs how much they are absolutely going to hate us as our time in this conference marinates and matures. So I'm glad we were able to get that a little bit. Shout out, Chris. Hope you keep it going. It's only going to get worse, and it's only going to get louder. Have fun.
I think, yeah, I agree. And I think what's interesting about the difference between the annoying Utah fans and the annoying UCF fans, the annoying Utah fans think they're too good to be in the Big 12. UCF fans are happy to be in the Big 12, but we're also happy to let you know we're annoying. I think it's the pretentious nature of Utah fans that makes them. And when it comes to sheer annoyance, like I think UCF probably still wins. So shout out.
Yeah. Another big difference between those fan bases is how UCF has won a Big 12 home game and Utah hasn't. So there's that too.
Nice. They got the UCF Big Noon treatment this past weekend.
I just have to say they've been in the conference, second season in the conference, still have not won a Big 12 home game. But they're just hanging out here until the Big 10 invite hits.
I don't think I explained to you this thought that I had the other day because we were talking right before I left about how they lost 34-10. They hosted Big Noon kickoff, lost 34-10. My brain had erased the Colorado Big Noon thing, and so I almost said to you last Saturday, could you imagine if when we hosted Cincinnati for the game day game, if we had gotten blown out for that game? Like that would have sucked. I can't believe Utah did that.
Yeah, I can't
thinking about it, and I'm like, they didn't have game day, and then I'm like, wait a minute. Big Noon. Oh, and so yeah, we did too. So,
can you imagine if UCF was in line to host game day and the only thing they had to do to make it happen was beat East Carolina and they couldn't?
4 picks by your favorite quarterback. Nice. Yeah, let's get out of here. We will be back Saturday afternoon with our post-game podcast. We'll go live shortly after the game. We'll tweet it out again. Let everybody know, but it will be sooner than after a home game, which is going to be nice.
It will be literally immediate. The clock will strike 0 and the live stream will start. So
we'll hit the live button. Yeah, we'll be back Saturday afternoon with episode 290. Until then, you can follow us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at @ByCASimmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. You can also follow Pewter Report at Pewter Report. Scott doesn't have his own personal Twitter, so I'll just plug our Pewter Report channel. And thank you to Scott again for joining us, giving some insight on the K-State Wildcats, this week's opponent. We will talk to you guys on Saturday.
Bye, everybody.